Hi, everyone. It's Sam Flynn, COO and co-founder of Josef, back for our next episode of Josef's Fireside Chat series. Today is a really special one because I'm joined by my friend and co-conspirator, let's call you that, Elaine Darr, who has a new title. So I'm going to make sure I get it right. Elaine, it is SVP Global Head of Digital, Legal and Innovation at DHL Group. Welcome, Elaine.
Thank you, Sam. Looking forward to our conversation.
Me too. Congratulations on your new role. It's very exciting. And I definitely want to hear more about that. First, though, your journey into this role from senior legal counsel to now global head of digital, legal, and innovation is one that really interests me as an ex-lawyer. Tell us about that journey. And particularly, how did that legal training impact the work that you do today?
Yes, it's been very interesting and I think very unique. So a couple of things. I think one thing is that speaks really highly of the organization I work for, DHL, because they're definitely open to leveraging lawyers in greater capacities and for different types of roles. And so early on in my career, I came straight from law firm, Sam, to DHL, thought I'm going to be in-house counsel, corporate counsel. This is what I would be doing for my entire career at DHL. But very shortly after I arrived, because the relationships I had built with the business leaders, they asked me if I was interested in doing more and said, there's a lot that we can leverage from, what lawyers bring to the table. And I think because they had seen how I partnered with them on deals, I was a deal attorney, commercial attorney. They said, there's so much more you could do to support the business. And are you interested? So when we started to have those conversations, it was never like this greater plan, like you're going to change roles and you're going to go into operations or you're going to lead a function. It kind of came about naturally. And I think that there was two things that really stood out is first the legal training, which we'll get to, because I know that was the second part of your question. But then also from a leadership attribute perspective, I think the business leaders said there's a unique combination with you specifically because you're a very strong lawyer and you provide us great counsel, but we also see you kind of going to the next level and solving for more like business commercial issues. And we don't typically see that. So the conversations were very natural. But then, when there was something real, they definitely came into my office and were like, okay, we got one for you. And that was my first move out of the legal department. And at the time, I kind of had that fear for, ooh, I don't want to give up my legal practice. So the deal I made with those business leaders was I would move out of legal, attend to a certain function that we were trying to kind of get our arms around from a performance perspective. But I always, said I have to have a way to get back to legal. So even in that first move, there was not some big plan like, hey, I'm going to move into the business and this is going to be a long-term career strategy. It was really opportunistic to leverage talent and to also take care of something that we just needed to attend for. And the business thought I was the right fit. But the idea was I would kind of move back to legal. But then, as you can see, if you look at my CV, that did not happen. I spent almost 8 years in the business. Yeah. Yeah.
What's kept you there for 8 years?
Performance. Right. So, once you get in there and you start actually helping achieve the objectives, help put together a strategy that actually comes to fruition, and then you have the performance behind that, then you just keep getting tapped for more and more. And especially, an organization like ours, we're a growth organization and we're all about our commitment to our customers. And so we're always growing and solving for our customers' needs, which means internally we need leaders. We need people that will step up and that will help solve for things. And so there's always avenues to grow because once you show that you have the skill set to do that, then they're going to keep saying, okay, here's more. And how about this? And would you like to potentially take this function or this portion of our organization and lead it? And so then it just naturally keeps evolving. And it was 8 years because in each of those it was something very interesting. So there was no, hey, hold on, I got to go back to legal because I was having fun. We were
Yeah.
building high performing teams. We were making our customers happy. We were growing. And so there was no rush or need to say, wait, hold on. The commitment we made was that I get to go back to legal, and for that course of 7 to 8 years, it was just go, go, go. And I was enjoying it and really building a lot of capabilities that I had never even thought about when I was, strict in the legal department or being a leader in the legal organization. Yeah.
Cool. How fun. You got sucked in as well.
Got sucked in. I guess that's the way to say
Yeah,
it.
yeah,
Yeah.
good. That's very much my journey as well. Like
Yeah.
black letter lawyer, loved it, and then just did one project and it's like, oh God, what was that?
Right.
More of that. Yeah.
Well, don't you always get asked almost like it was a choice to leave? Like, do people ask you, why did you leave having like a legal practice? And
Mm,
right, I get that
yeah.
question a lot, a lot. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree fully. It did not feel like a choice. It was just sort of an inevitability.
Yeah. Like
Yeah.
natural.
I think the choice, and it sounds like this might be the same for you, was to be curious,
Yeah.
right? To be curious, what is there outside of the law? How else can I be
Yeah.
doing this? You make that choice, but then what flows is not always a choice.
Yeah. And I would agree because that kind of ties back to what I was saying about I call it leadership attributes. But, I think that's where the business saw the difference because of my interest, right? So if there was a business problem that had a legal support nuance, it was very hard for me to stay in my lane and just be the lawyer because
Mm,
I saw the bigger picture. And I was like, well, hold on. No, let's solve for this. Let's do this. And that's not traditionally what the lawyers do on the project. So you kind of either you're going to kind of do those things if you're naturally built to do it. And I don't think that there's it's not a choice like you said. It just happens.
mm,
Yeah.
mm. Cool.
Yeah.
Um, I mean, you've been recognized for that work, so it's not just a passion. You won an award. I think it was last year, was it, from the American Lawyer Industry Awards?
Yeah.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
What does that mean to you? You were named Corporate Counsel Best Deputy or Associate GC. What does that mean to you, and how does that reflect your work at DHL?
Yeah, I think it's great recognition. I love the award because it's also, it's peers, your colleagues in the industry that vote. So it's not something that's like self-promoting. So I'm pretty proud of it, but you know, yes, my individual work and capabilities is a huge part of it. But if you look at kind of the description and what they read about me when I won the award, it was because I was so different than others that were nominated because of all the business and operational experience and being able to leverage that within legal.
Mm,
So yeah, I did a lot of the heavy lifting by being a strong performer and a strong leader. But if DHL hadn't, created that environment where I had gotten that experience, I wouldn't have won the award. And of course, all the teams over the years that have supported bringing me on, like, okay, we're going to bring a lawyer onto the business team. They were open to it, right? And so yes, it was a lot of my individual contribution, but it's also because I had so many leaders and an organization that supported that career path and career journey. Because I really think it stood out, and that's why I won. Because the
mm,
people that were on the judging panel were like, "Wait a minute, what has she done? She's had P&L responsibility, legal leadership responsibility. She's ran functions and turnaround and growth engines for DHL. So I think that's why I stood out and honestly why I won.
fascinating.
Yeah.
Why, just quickly an aside, for in-house lawyers or legal ops professionals listening, if their firm or company is not doing the same thing, what would your ask be? What would your advice be to them?
Yeah, they need to. They need to. I mean, you can see the writing on the wall, right? It's not just so, technology and generative AI, all the things that you and I are passionate about, of course, are in every white paper or, all over social media about how they're impacting legal. But it's not just that. It's the pressures of cost. It's the pressures of being more efficient. It's the pressures of complexity across laws, rules, and regulations for each country that is impacting both law firms and in-house corporate counsel. And if you're not, whether you're an organization or your law firm, if you're not attending to your overarching strategy and the way to leverage talent and to really solve for all of those constraints, then you will get left behind. So if they're not, take the corporate perspective, if you're not looking across your talent pools and saying, who can I leverage and whose strengths can I, tap into, whether it's lawyers or a business or a finance person, then honestly, I just think you're going to get left behind because it's just too competitive out there and it's too cutthroat to kind of just sit on your hands and, oh, I just, kind of operate the way I did 20 years ago. I don't think that's anybody's going to be successful doing that anymore with how competitive it is out there. So,
No, I agree. It's
yeah,
moving so quickly.
so
Moving
quickly.
so quickly. Yeah. Um, One of the things that came through when you were talking about what you were proud of with the award was it was voted by your peers, which I agree makes it even more special. One of the things that you're doing along with Mark and the DHL team is you're running the DHL Innovation Summit in a couple, to next week even, and we'll be there. This is one of the most generous things that I have ever seen from any in-house legal team. Like, I don't know, like it's equally incredible, and also like I don't understand how you've all pulled this together while doing the job of an in-house lawyer. Tell us, what is it and why did you decide to do it?
Yeah. So I do have to give Mark Smolik all the credit. The Mark that you referred to for those listening is Mark Smolik, who is my former boss. Um, so we were presenting together. We were both on main stage at an event, running Legal Like a Business that's promoted and sponsored by UX.com, right? And so what we found was what we were presenting, which was AI use cases for legal and really how to take an idea all the way through to execution and deployment. It was a snapshot of 3 use cases, and that was the framework of our presentation. But what we found was the audience and the attendees were hungry for more. So there was an opportunity of people ask questions, and there was a series of people raising their hands and standing up at mics, and we ran out of time. So Mark Smolik takes the microphone and says in front of everybody, we commit to getting you more information and more details about how we've approached innovation and technology implementations. And we will share with you. And then he kind of looked at me and he said, now it's going to all fall on her because she's the one that's going to help, put this together and make sure we have a way to communicate and get this information and share what her and her team have done within our, team at DHL. So he said that on main stage. So then what happened is we had a lot of people reaching out, following up saying, can we do a webinar to show, like, say, one of our particular solutions? That general counsel attended and said, ooh, I want you to do this demo for my team. Can I set up an hour with you? And others reaching out saying, I want to follow up more on this generative AI solution you built. And so that's where Mark and I kind of sat down and said, we need to consolidate because we can't have all these one-off conversations. And we can tell that other in-house legal counsel and general counsels or CLOs are trying to figure out how to go about this. So why don't we give back? Why don't we structure, something that's like a day, a half day, figure out how to do it all at one time rather than having these one-off conversations. So then he, went and got kind of sponsorship internally with our leadership to say, can we commit to giving, a day back? We'll call it like a summit where the DHL legal team, actually from in-house to other in-house lawyers, can help give more details on kind of our playbook and how we take an idea all the way to implementation. So that's how it evolved. And then it ended up being, you're right, a day and a half next week, Columbus, Ohio. And it's going to be very interesting. Yeah, because like you said, we don't put summits or conferences on for a living. This is all about collaboration and connection. And, I'm sure through this, we'll learn a lot as well, because there's going to be a lot of smart people in the room, and they're going to have some opportunity to share as well.
Is that, I mean, beyond, it being an act of giving, a good thing to do, is that what's in it for your team? Like learning from the community?
Well, there's a bit of it that's for the benefit of DHL.
Mm.
So, the team that Mark and I led in is for the supply chain division. And the supply chain division in Americas it's all pretty much B2B work, right? And so we have a portfolio of our largest customers. And we have a relationship with the general counsels for, I would say, like our top 50 largest customers for Supply Chain Americas. So naturally, what's in it for us is to ensure that they are invited and that they can send any resources from their legal ops innovation team to the event. So it's almost like not just legal to legal, it's the DHL brand also helping our customers. And it's interesting because it's on the customer's side, but not in supply chain. It's one of their functions, right? So it's really great brand recognition for DHL across the board, because we really position ourselves to be global leaders in innovation across our divisions and across our functions. And so to be able to say to our customers, when you come to DHL for your solution, you can be ensured that not only do we innovate from a pure like services that we provide to you, but even our internal functions are trying to change the game and be, thought leaders and ensure that everything that we do for you, customer, is as effective and efficient as possible. So that's what's in it for us. We're actually doing a little bit of marketing as well. Yeah.
It's extraordinary. Like, it's so, the fact that you're thinking like that and Mark's thinking like that is just, I don't know if I've ever seen this anywhere else. Like, it's not running legal like a business. It's like you are contributing directly to the bottom line of the business in ways that other people have never thought of. It's inspiring. Very cool. Something we can all aspire to, for sure. Okay, you mentioned your legal team playbook, which I'm sure everyone listening would want to get their hands on.
Yeah.
Obviously, we can't go into all the details, but tell us, what is it at a high level? How do you take an idea from conception to deployment?
Yeah, so we actually take it in, it's like 6 pieces. We call them kind of like chapters of our playbook. And so next week, you'll see that we break down each one of those and we walk the team through. If you have conceptually an idea of something that you're trying to solve for, it's like, how do you start? And so we walk through like chapter 1, your use case. So how do you actually develop a use case? And then this is an interesting thing that when you're in the business, you don't realize legal teams are not good at, but how do you present your ROI, your business case, right? Because you're typically going to go to somebody to say, I need funding for this. And they're going to want to know why and what's the payback, right? That's what business and finance and your controller or CFO is going to ask. So we start all the way from use case development, all the way through project management, to sponsorship, to communication, and then we wrap it out with the last topic, which is about change management and continuous improvement, which honestly becomes the most important part. Yeah, because you will, and I know because you do this for a living, but you cannot throw technology at something without understanding how much change is going to be required of your lawyers. And that's the one piece that I believe a lot of projects fall, flat. I've talked to multiple leaders of legal ops or general counsels that will say, we went and we worked with a vendor, we introduced a CLM, and nobody's using it. Like, yeah, it's a big investment. So it's from beginning use case through business case, through project management, to even analysis of understanding all of your data mapping, and then wrapping it up with the end, which is the last chapter of our playbook, which is change management. So it's kind of end to end. Yeah.
Beautiful. And sort of the end of the playbook is not the end, right? That's just the life cycle of the tool.
The life cycle. Yep. Yeah.
What, for anyone sort of grappling with that idea of change management? What's like one tip or hint you would give to them?
It's always like, what's in it for them. I always say, you know, that saying, what's in it for them?
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't matter. You can have ROI, you can have business case, you can have from a legal ops or, support perspective, all these reasons why we need to do something from a technology perspective. But if you don't take the time to sit down with the end user and understand what's in it for them, they will never adopt. They will never adopt. They're just going to say, and go back to their desk, and they're going to manage their day with all of their volume as a practicing lawyer exactly how they do right now.
Mm-hmm.
Because as a practicing lawyer with the volume, it's survival. The legal work is increasing, it's not decreasing. So if you're a lawyer and you're good at your role and you support the business and you're used to cranking and you have a way of organizing your day, then for somebody to come to you and say, stop, I need you to change, why? What's in it for me? No, I'm not changing. This does not help me at all. In fact, you're slowing me down. So what's in it for them? That's always like the motto, and like that customer experience, taking the time to understand and sit with them and shadow them and understanding what they're experiencing when they're going to be using your technology solution or your tool or whatever you're changing.
Yeah, I think that is a really beautiful point. Something that a lot of people I see miss, even if they're trying and investing in change management, the listening. You can come up with as many brilliant pitches as you want, right?
Yep.
About why it's a great tool or whatever, but just listen, because there'll be something really simple but really powerful that you will not have thought of, and that is the thing that is going to get them excited.
Yeah,
that's great.
I think we also, and we've even learned from this over the years, is too many legal departments set up legal ops as a separate, independent function. It was kind of like the lawyers were like, okay, yeah, we need to solve for this, or the general counsel, and I'm just going to add these non-lawyers and have them take care of all of this. That does not work. It does not work. Your true legal operations community needs to have super users that are lawyers that are part of legal operations. It has to have lawyers that are double-hatted, that have a passion for technology and innovation, that are supporting your legal operations team. Because when you just add, a team of legal ops and, back end office people that are non-lawyers and just say, go solve for all of this, it never works. It never works. You have to have lawyers on the team as well.
If I could draw out a pattern that I've seen in the DHL legal team, that is exactly it. That wearing 2 hats, 3 hats, 4 hats is very normal for you all.
Yeah,
in a way that it's not in other teams. I think that's a really special takeaway for people.
Yeah.
I'm conscious of the time. Sorry to cut you off. I don't want to keep you too long because I know you're very busy, particularly in your new role. I want to shift us to AI and tech. Would you believe? AI is rapidly changing the legal landscape, as you and I both know. Tell us, how is DHL thinking about AI and how are you integrating it into your operations?
Yeah, so we are approaching AI by leveraging the playbook and the process that we've established for any process or technology improvement. So using kind of those details of our playbook of how we look for things, it's another way to solve, another tool in our chest to solve for those efficiencies or use cases. It's just the difference is it's so much more advanced and it's so much more progressive than it was 2.5 years ago, right? And of course, the big change being large language models. I mean, essentially, any of our things that are, a use case are extremely inefficient or complex today, you can leverage a large language model to do a lot of that heavy lifting. And 3 years ago, that didn't exist. So we still leverage the same process, right? We don't just say use AI to use AI. It may be AI that can help solve our problem. It may be something else, just a process change or, a policy or framework. But with the changes and the introduction of LLMs, we have just advanced, a decade ahead. And it's impacting everything from how we structure our intake portal to how we're drafting contracts to how we're, drafting leases. our commercial agreements, everything now. You can do so much of the traditional legal work by leveraging a model that's been trained to like help you leverage what you've done in the past to get a good start. And then you bring the human in the loop. So it's just progressing very quickly.
Nice. That is the pithiest description of how to leverage LLMs for low-hanging fruit that I've ever heard. Leverage what you've built in the past and bring a human in the loop. Like,
Yep, that's it.
simple as that, right?
Yep,
Good.
does not replace lawyers. It just helps.
Yeah.
It just helps us. Yeah, we're way too slow. Yeah.
Yeah. That's great. I love that. And that applies to everything from like document drafting, like plug it into your DMS, leverage what you've already got. That applies to like a Josef Q&A tool, a chatbot, plug it into your existing wiki or knowledge bases, but always have that human in the loop. I think that's the quote from this entire chat. I think the other really interesting point from that for me is something that everyone forgot 2 years ago when this technology landed, which was don't throw away your existing processes. Just because the tool has changed doesn't mean all of that stuff has changed, right?
That's
Like
right.
it's just the next tool to use. Yes, it's extraordinarily powerful and it's totally transformed the way we might do certain things or even approach issues that were unapproachable before. But that process is so critical.
Yeah. Yep. We say that all the time. You can't just add technology. You have to have the existing framework and process in place. Now, maybe you tweak it, like you said, because things are much more advanced and we need to
Yes.
kind of think
Yes.
much broader. But you can't just go and grab technology if you don't have an existing guidance document, framework, policy to back up that full end-to-end process of creating the legal work. Yeah.
Absolutely. Okay. Final question. I mean, I have a million more questions for you, but I'm conscious of your time. What is one question about AI or in-house legal operations that we should be asking ourselves, but we're not?
The biggest one for me is how we are going to educate and train young lawyers.
Yes.
It's a huge challenge. And I don't want to scare all those folks out there that are young lawyers or right now in law school that are also trying to figure this out. But the curriculum in law school is not keeping up, as we know. And then the way I grew up and you grew up, you're right, you started a large law firm and they really trained you to be the best lawyer possible. Well, how did they do that? They gave you that low hanging fruit work. You don't need to do that anymore. So, how do you teach that thinking like a lawyer and that ability to kind of move to that next level from a career perspective if you're not doing that? I hate calling it grunt work, but there's a purpose for that grunt work, right? It trained our brains, it trained the way we need to think and all the things that we need to consider when we're looking at a document or how it, documents interact with each other and legal provisions interact with each other. And I'm very curious how we're going to do that 10 years from now, looking back when we have, young lawyers. It's like, I'm not sure what they're going to work on. And that to me is something that we're really not solving for or asking enough questions about.
Yep. Agree. I think it's the number one question right now. Yep. My fireside chat last week was with Megan Ma from Codex. I'll send you through her materials and link it in the video as well. But she has recently founded Lift Lab at Stanford, and they are doing experiments, very early stage, but doing experiments to start answering that exact question. One of which I was fascinated by is what they call a legal persona. So they train up a model on an individual partner or senior associate's work materials. And then a junior can actually interact with that legal persona and get input and feedback as though from the partner on tasks. So, you remember what it was like at Big Law, right? Snatching 5 minutes of a senior partner's time was so hard. But now, even though it's not as powerful, obviously, they could spend an hour with a version of that partner and then use that 5 minutes to like ask a more sophisticated question or really delve deep into something that they didn't understand.
That is fascinating.
Cool. Hey.
That is really fascinating. And you're right, because that was, I think about when I was a first, second, third year, it's that interaction. They just pound you with questions and who, what, when, where, why. I remember
Yes.
hearing that from partners: who, what, when, where, why. And they dig, dig, dig.
Yeah.
And really, if you could almost simulate that exercise,
Yeah.
that's fascinating. Yeah. Very cool.
Yeah, I think that's right. And so I think there's a lot of fear out there, but there's a lot of reason to be hopeful as well, because there
That's
are a
right.
lot of flaws. There are a lot of flaws in the existing model, as you and me both well know.
I,
Um,
yeah.
Elaine, I've kept you for far too long from all the important things that you are doing. Thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate it. And I can't wait to see you next week.
Yes. Thank you for your time. This was a lot of fun. And thank you for being a thought leader in the industry. We're so lucky to have people like you really kind of pushing the envelope out there. So thank you so much. And I cannot wait to see you next week.